Hello and welcome to another short drawing film. This week I'm going to do a quick digital painting study of this toy car, a Matchbox car. I've done a few of these in the past, I haven't done one for a while, and I thought it was worthwhile having another go. This exercise is really one that taught me the big difference between being a painter and being a drawer. Up until I did these, I really used to just concentrate very heavily on the line work and then add the colour later, whereas the way I approached these, I didn't do any line work at all. I just literally looked at them in terms of shapes and values and colours and ignored the line work pretty much. And it really was an eye-opener for me. So if you haven't tried anything like this before, I highly recommend it. It's a really interesting thing to have a go at. So let's fire up Procreate on the iPad and get started. So here I am in Procreate. I'm going to use this flat brush, which is one of the standard brushes that comes with it. It has a kind of a nice painterly quality, I find, which is kind of the effect I'm going for. I want it to look a bit like a painting rather than a photoreal, kind of perfectly smooth finish. That's not what I want to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is try and make a red that feels like the brightest part of the car. That's kind of an orangey red, pretty saturated. I can change this afterwards if it's not right, but I'll try and get close. Perhaps actually what I should do first is just make my background a slightly darker colour. I'll make the background colour the colour that I think the paper is out of the light, and then I can do an area for the light as well, because there is a bit of a gradient going on. So I think the shadow part of the paper is probably down there somewhere in that kind of grey. So let's get back to our car on a separate layer there we've got. So how does that look? Yeah, it's pretty good actually, not far off I don't think. So I'm just going to look at everything that's red on the car and not think of it in terms of being a car, just think of it in terms of a shape and see if I can reproduce that shape. So including this is the top surface and the sides, anything that's red. So I'm not going to draw wheel arches and doors and all the stuff that I would normally do. I'm just going to try and draw a blob that's the right proportions for the red stuff. And I can use an eraser of the same sort to chisel away if I've gone too deep. Get some smoother curves where I need it. It's quite a weird exercise trying to sort of not look in 3D, just trying to think what shape is that red bit. The back slopes downwards slightly, so I need to take some off there. Of course, although I'm not thinking in 3D, in my mind, I do still know that there is perspective going on here. So in my mind, I know roughly I've got these lines which need to converge somewhere far off to the side. And everything kind of needs to fit within this framework, this kind of grid. But it doesn't feel too far off. I will do everything on a separate layer because we're working digitally, so you may as well make use of all this stuff. You could do everything on one layer, like a proper painting. But I'm not going to make this any more difficult for myself than I need to. I think what might be interesting is just to get a shadow in. So the shadow isn't the darkest part of this picture. I don't think it's not far off. I think the darkest part of the black tyres are still a bit darker. But I'll go for something fairly dark. I find getting that's probably a bit too strong. I find getting it, as soon as you get this shadow in on the floor, it starts to feel much more three-dimensional. Feels like an object, sat on a surface. So it's a bit higher at the front than the back. It's kind of fuzzy at the edges, and it's definitely lighter at the back than the front. So what we could do is preserve the transparency. If you swipe on a layer with 2 fingers, it preserves the transparent areas, and you can change the paint over the top of the bits you've already done. So if you want to lighten something, like these edges here, it should be a bit brighter because they're fuzzy. Again, I think that would do for now. I just want to block things out, get the basic lumps down, see if it's the right proportions, and then crack on with refining it once I'm happy that the big stuff's right. We could have a go at the roof. So this is this kind of yellowy plastic. It's probably even brighter than that. Maybe something like that. So again, just look at the shape and how it relates to the other shape I put down first. And draw that so get the eraser and refine that a bit. And I'll put the yellow windscreen in as well. Again, everything, all these main elements, I'll put them on separate layers just because we can. So that's kind of this green here, maybe a bit more orange in it. I'm just comparing where this corner of the windscreen comes to. If you take a vertical line down, where does it come to in relation to this front wheel? And on the toy car, it seems to meet about here, so mine's too far forward. So I need to erase that, take it further back, which probably means my roof also is too far forward. That's better. It feels like the bonnet's a decent length now. And last of all, we'll put the interior in as well, just, as I say, very dark. Or I'll do the lighter of the 2 greys. Actually, that looks more like it should be the darker one. And the bumpers, probably ought to do those. And the grills. So start with a medium grey. Right, so we've got just flat shapes in for everything. I haven't actually drawn the wheels, but I don't need to because they're just part of the shadow, I suppose. So this would be the point at which you want to check if you're happy with your proportions. And I think I am. I think maybe just the bonnet, the boot needs to come down a little bit. So if I, erase a bit off that back edge and drop it down a tiny bit. It's a bit like being a sculptor, sort of chiseling bits off. Yeah, I'm happy with that, I think. So what we'll do now is revisit each of these different shapes and add some shading. So at the moment, this body here will preserve the transparency, so swipe it to the side with 2 fingers. And I think this top colour is pretty close to what I need. Perhaps it could be a tiny bit brighter. So we could just get a little bit more orange. Just get a bit more orange in there. I find you get a bit of variation in your colours. It makes it more interesting. There's a bit more orange in this front corner than it is in the back. And like I say, it makes it more interesting to look at if it's got some variation. So this boot is quite flat on, so it's quite a flat surface. So I think it's going to be reflecting the paper behind. So if I select the grey of the paper and just swipe over that boot lid a bit, it will lighten it. And I introduce some of that grey, which will make it feel like it's reflecting that slightly, which is probably a good thing. So now for the sides, to give it some, we need to look at how much darker is the side compared to the top. And it does actually roll around slightly, so it's not much different till you get to, there's a little sort of seam line where it suddenly gets much darker and bluer. So let's have a look at that. Let's go down here, that makes it cooler and darker. Try putting that in. That goes for a lot of this back part and this front bit. It's interesting because it's sort of darker, but it's also reflecting some of the white, so it's different. So maybe if I take some of this grey and put that back in, it will cool it down, take some of the saturation out, and that's probably more accurate. You kind of have to think a little bit about what's going on here, sort of not painting what you think it should be like, but actually studying it and thinking, well, why is that the same, or why is that different? You know, that kind of thing. The arches do actually stick out a fair bit, so I'm going to try and get a bit of shape in those. A lot of this paint is actually chipped off on that corner, so there's not going to be much of this red left. This seam line sticks out quite a bit, and the paint on top of it is going to be warmer. Right, that'll do for that bit. And let's go to the roof. So again, this is quite yellow on top. Oh, got to preserve the transparency. And maybe again there's a bit more of the grey as it falls off. And on the side, it's darker and greyer, so we'll pull this down a little bit. Maybe a bit less saturated than that. It's quite subtle. The brightest part of it's this front edge here, so we can go a bit brighter there. I'll do for that. Let's have a look at this, the light on the floor, because it is in a pool of light. So we need to go, it won't be pure white. It's not going to be far off though. Really big brush. Can have a little bit of artistic license at this point just to design a nice shape. Right, let's go, and I think what we'll do now is we'll skip ahead to one of the more fun stages, which on a new layer, I'm going to put some highlights in, because I find that the highlights really make the object kind of pop and look three-dimensional, which is always exciting. So let's pop some of those in. So let's have a look. The really obvious one is here on that vent. And there's a tiny one the other side. There's one there. And again, you need to kind of look at these and see, are they dots or are they stretched around an edge, or are they on an outside corner, or are they in a kind of a crevice? So these front ones here are quite long, but not as bright. So we've got one on the edge of the chair seat. There's a small dot of one there on this arch. Sometimes I have a strong dot and then a sort of stretched, softer area around it. And while we're doing these extra fun little details, we'll do the chip paint as well. We'll just pick a medium grey to start with, and we'll just get the basic shapes down. So this front edge has got all of that chipped off around there. Some along that ridge. That stripe down the side is all chipped. It's got some chips down the bottom edge, the doors, sills. The arches. Right, so now we've plotted where they need to go, we'll preserve the transparency, get a brighter shade of grey, and lighten these top ones, which should be brighter. They do get darker down the back here, a little bit darker down the bottom. Top ones are definitely brighter. I think what we need to do now is get some detail in these wheels. I haven't done those at all yet. So I'm just going to look at what colour the chrome part is. Draw myself a circle. And then I'll do the same for the back, although the back one's, the chrome's pretty much all rubbed off, but I'll do it anyway. So we've got these kind of bracket shapes that need to be erased from it. That'll do for now. And then we've got these reflections. So let's pick a grey. The biggest ones are on the front face there. So they start bright and then get darker as they come down. The tyres' sides, the side walls are quite shiny, so they do reflect quite a lot of this white paper. And they're slightly bulging so that you get the inside of the top part reflecting and the outside of the lower part reflecting. The other thing we need is that there's some sort of pressed in details like the doors and things which just need to bring those out a bit. So if I pick some of that, I'm going to use the orange from the top there. Just get on the right layer. And use that to draw the door shut line. This section down here is almost invisible. If anything, it just reflects the white a little bit from the floor. But the part down the bottom there is much stronger. That's quite a dark red, I think. But where the door wraps underneath into that groove, it reflects the floor. It's amazing little details like that you know, you wouldn't think to put in unless you saw them. Just notice where the door shut line passes up here. The paint isn't chipped off down in the groove. So I'll erase that bit and that bit. I think there is a tiny bit of yellow from this windscreen falling on that back seat, so we'll just put that in. So at this point, it's just a matter of kind of looking at each little part in turn and thinking, have I got enough? Is it close enough, or does it need, have I missed something out? And of course, it's up to you when you think it's done. Right, let's say that's done. Like I say, when you look closely, you can see there's a, sorry, I'll put some noise on there. You can see it's very, very rough. And you could spend ages refining all of this to make it look perfect. But I found that I learnt all the important lessons just at the early stages, trying to judge shapes, values and colours. That's kind of the important lessons you learn, and you're not really going to learn that much more by refining and making it all look pretty. But you can do that if you want. The only other thing I added was a little bit of grain, because digital drawings can look a bit flat sometimes, so a little bit of grain added over the top can help sometimes just make it feel a bit softer, a bit more natural. And otherwise, that was pretty much it. Hope you found that interesting. If you do give it a go yourself, if you do try it yourself, pick a simple subject and a simple background and simple lighting. That will make it all much easier for you. Otherwise, do like and subscribe, and have a fantastic week, and I'll see you for another film soon.